Walking is good. We're told to walk 10,000 steps, to walk after meals, to walk for our hearts. And yes, walking matters. But here's what almost no one tells you if you're over 60. Walking alone will not stop the silent muscle loss that's already happening in your legs right now. In fact, you can walk every single day and still watch your thighs shrink, your balance falter, and your ability to stand up from a chair without using your hands quietly disappear. The reason is simple, and it comes down to muscle fiber type. Walking uses your slow-twitch endurance fibers, the ones built for stamina. But the fast-twitch power fibers, the ones that let you catch yourself when you stumble, that let you climb stairs without gripping the rail, that keep you independent, those fibers start vanishing at roughly 8% per decade after 50 if you don't specifically challenge them. And walking doesn't challenge them. Not even close. So today I'm going to show you the 2 movements that do, movements you can do at home in under 5 minutes that directly target the muscle systems walking misses. One rebuilds the explosive strength in your quads and glutes, the fibers responsible for standing, climbing, and recovering from a trip. The other restores ankle and calf power, the foundation of your balance, and the reason so many people over 60 feel unsteady even on flat ground. Both are backed by research from major rehabilitation and aging centers. Both are safe when done correctly, and both produce visible changes in strength and confidence within 2 to 3 weeks. I'll walk you through exactly how to do them, the progression if you're starting cautious, the common mistakes that waste your effort, and why these 2 moves matter more than any step count ever will. But before we get to the movements themselves, I want to tell you about the 2 types of muscle loss that no one explains clearly, because once you understand what's actually happening inside your legs, you'll see why walking isn't enough and why these 2 simple exercises change everything. Coming up in number 2, the surprising truth about why your legs feel weaker even though you're active, and in number 1, the single most dangerous muscle imbalance that causes falls and how to reverse it in less than a month. And right now, drop a comment and let me know, where are you watching from and do your legs feel as strong as they did 5 years ago? I read every reply. Let's start with what happens to your legs after 60 that makes walking insufficient. There are 2 processes at work and most people don't know the difference. The first is sarcopenia, the gradual loss of total muscle mass. You lose somewhere between 3 and 8% of your muscle per decade after 50, and that loss accelerates after 60. Sarcopenia affects all muscle, everywhere, and yes, staying active helps slow it. Walking helps with sarcopenia to some degree because it keeps you moving, keeps blood flowing, keeps some load on the legs. But here's the part that gets missed. Sarcopenia isn't the only problem, and for many people it's not even the main problem. The second process is called dynapenia, the specific loss of muscle power and explosive strength. Dynapenia doesn't care if your muscle mass stays decent. It targets the fast-twitch fibers, the ones responsible for quick, forceful contractions, and those fibers atrophy faster and more severely than slow-twitch endurance fibers. Analysis from gerontology research centers shows that power declines at roughly 3 times the rate of overall strength in older adults, and walking does almost nothing to preserve it because walking never requires you to move fast or push hard. Let me make this concrete. Imagine 2 women, both 70, both walk 40 minutes a day. One has maintained her fast-twitch fibers through occasional strength work over the years. The other has not. They both have similar endurance, similar step counts, similar cardiovascular health. But one can stand from a low chair without hands, can catch herself if she trips on a curb, can climb a steep staircase without fear. The other cannot. That difference is dynapenia. That difference is power. And that difference is what the 2 movements I'm about to show you directly address. Now here's the kicker. Most balance programs for older adults focus on static holds, standing on one foot, heel-to-toe walks, things that train your proprioception and your ability to sense where your body is in space. Those are helpful truly. But if the muscles that execute the corrective movement, the quads, the glutes, the calves, if those muscles lack the power to fire quickly when you start to fall, all the balance training in the world won't save you. You need both. You need the nervous system to detect the problem, and you need the muscle to solve it instantly. Walking gives you endurance. Static balance drills give you awareness. But neither gives you power. And power is what keeps you upright when the sidewalk is uneven or the dog pulls the leash or you turn too quickly in the kitchen. So what are the two movements that build that power? Let me give you the first one now, and then I'll show you exactly how to progress it safely. The first movement is the sit-to-stand explosive, sometimes called a chair pop or a bodyweight jump squat for seniors, though we're not actually jumping. Here's what it is. You sit in a sturdy chair, feet flat, hip-width apart, hands crossed over your chest or held out in front for balance. From the seated position, you stand up as fast as you can, driving through your heels, engaging your glutes and quads with as much speed as you can safely generate. Then you lower back down with control, taking 3 to 4 seconds to sit, and you repeat. That's it. Sit, explode up, lower slowly, repeat. The explosive phase, the fast stand, is what recruits your fast twitch fibers. The slow lowering, called an eccentric contraction, builds strength and protects your knees. 10 to 12 reps, 2 to 3 times a week, is enough to produce measurable strength gains in older adults, often within 2 to 3 weeks. Why does this work when walking doesn't? Because the demand is different. Walking loads your legs at roughly 60 to 80% of your body weight per step, spread over a slow, controlled motion. The sit-to-stand explosive asks your legs to lift your full body weight against gravity in 1 second or less. That difference in speed and load is what wakes up the dormant fast twitch fibers, the ones that have been quietly shrinking because nothing in your daily routine has asked them to work. Research from physical therapy and aging mobility labs has shown that explosive sit-to-stand training improves not just strength but walking speed, stair climbing ability, and self-reported confidence in movement, all within 4 to 6 weeks. And it's safe because you're never leaving the ground, you're never jumping, you're simply moving faster than you normally would. Let me tell you about Richard. Richard was 67, a retired postal worker, walked his dog twice a day, every day, 3 miles total. He felt good about his activity level until one afternoon he caught his foot on the edge of a rug and went down hard, fracturing his wrist. When I asked him to stand from a chair without using his hands, it took him 4 seconds and visible effort. His walking had kept his endurance, but his leg power was gone. We started him on sit-to-stand explosives, just 3 sets of 8 reps, twice a week. Within 3 weeks, he could stand in under 2 seconds with no arm push. Within 6 weeks, he told me he felt lighter on his feet, more confident on stairs, less afraid in his own house. The dog walks continued, but they weren't enough anymore. The explosive stand was what brought his power back. Now let me give you the progression and the safety notes because this is where people make mistakes. If you cannot stand from a chair without using your hands at all, start there. Practice standing with control, hands on the armrests, until you can do 10 reps with minimal hand pressure. Then remove the hands and practice standing at normal speed, 10 reps, focusing on driving through the heels. Once that feels solid, then and only then, add the explosive speed. If you feel unsteady, keep a counter or a wall within arm's reach for the first few sessions. The chair should be sturdy, ideally without wheels, and the height should allow your knees to be at roughly 90 degrees when seated. If the chair is too low, the movement becomes too hard and risks knee strain. If it's too high, you lose the training effect. Start with 2 sets of 8 to 10 reps, rest 1 minute between sets, and do this twice a week. After 2 weeks, if it feels manageable, add a 3rd set or do it 3 times a week. You will feel your quads burn. That's normal. You should not feel sharp pain in your knees or hips. If you do, slow the eccentric phase even more and check your form. Your knees should track over your toes, not collapse inward, and your weight should stay in your heels, not your toes. Here's the part that surprises people. This movement doesn't just make you stronger. It makes you faster. And speed is what matters in a fall. When you trip, you have roughly 200 to 400 milliseconds to react before you hit the ground. If your muscles can't contract fast enough to catch you, strength alone won't help. The explosive sit-to-stand trains that speed, that neuromuscular quickness, and it does it in a way that's functional because standing from a chair is something you do 10, 20, 30 times a day. You're not learning a gym exercise. You're retraining a movement you already do, making it powerful again. Now let's move to number 2, the movement that addresses the second half of the leg weakening problem, the part that happens below the knee and almost no one talks about. This is the hidden weak point that causes more falls than hip or quad weakness, and it's the easiest to fix if you know what to target. Your ankles and calves. Specifically, the muscles that plantar flex your foot, that point your toes down, and the muscles that stabilize your ankle side to side. After 60, these muscles weaken faster than almost anything else in the lower body. Part of that is disuse. Most of us walk on flat, even surfaces wearing supportive shoes, and our ankles never have to work hard or react quickly. Part of it is neuromuscular, the connection between the nerve and the muscle slows with age, and if you're not challenging it, it fades. And part of it is simply that no one tells you to train your calves for power. You stretch them, maybe, if you have plantar fasciitis. But power? Speed? Almost never. Here's why it matters. When you start to lose your balance, your ankle is the first responder. Before your hips shift, before your arms flail, your ankle makes a micro-adjustment, plantar flexing or dorsiflexing or tilting side to side to keep your center of mass over your base. If that adjustment is weak or slow, you've lost the moment. You're already falling. Studies on balance and fall mechanics in older adults consistently show that ankle strength and ankle reaction time are among the strongest predictors of fall risk, often stronger than hip or knee strength. And yet, ankle power is almost never trained. The second movement is the calf raise explosive, done on a single leg if possible, or on both legs if you're starting cautiously. Here's the setup. Stand near a counter or a wall, something you can lightly touch for balance, feet hip-width apart. Shift your weight onto one leg, keep the other foot hovering just off the ground or resting lightly on the back of the standing ankle. From a flat-footed position, rise up onto the ball of your foot as fast as you can, like you're trying to jump but your toes stay on the ground. Hold the top for 1 second, feeling your calf fully contracted, then lower slowly over 3 to 4 seconds until your heel is below the level of your toes if you're standing on a step, or until your heel touches the ground if you're on flat ground. That slow eccentric, the lowering phase, is critical. It builds strength and it protects your Achilles tendon. Do 8 to 12 reps on one leg, switch, repeat, 2 to 3 sets, 2 to 3 times a week. If a single leg calf raise feels too hard, start with both legs together, same explosive rise, same slow lower. Once you can do 15 reps with control on both legs, progress to single leg. If even the two-legged version feels shaky, hold the counter with both hands and reduce the range of motion. Just practice the explosive push and the controlled lower, even if you're only rising an inch or two. Your calves will adapt quickly. Most people notice a difference in ankle stability within 2 weeks. Here's the mechanism. The explosive calf raise recruits your gastrocnemius and soleus, the two main muscles of the calf, but it does so at high speed, which again targets the fast-twitch fibers. Those are the fibers that fire when you step on something uneven, when you catch yourself on a curb, when you need to push off quickly to avoid a fall. Walking activates your calves, yes, but at low intensity and slow speed. It's not enough to maintain power. The calf raise explosive gives your ankles the strength and the reaction speed they need to stabilize you in the critical first half second of a balance challenge. Let me tell you about Linda. Linda was 71, walked every morning, did yoga twice a week, felt strong and flexible. But she'd had 3 near falls in 6 months, all on flat ground, all because her ankle rolled slightly and she couldn't correct fast enough. When I tested her single-leg calf raise, she could barely rise onto her toes on her right leg, and her left was only marginally better. We started her on 2-legged explosive calf raises, 3 sets of 10, twice a week, holding the counter lightly for balance. After 2 weeks, she could do 12 reps without touching the counter. After 4 weeks, she progressed to single leg, 8 reps each side. At 6 weeks, she told me she felt more stable everywhere, on walks, on stairs, even just standing in line at the grocery store. She hadn't fallen and she no longer felt like she was about to. Her ankle power had come back. Now here's the detail that matters. The calf raise explosive doesn't just make your ankles stronger in one direction. It improves your proprioception, your sense of where your foot is in space, because the explosive push and the slow lower force your nervous system to coordinate the movement precisely. That coordination, that neuromuscular control, is what keeps you upright when the ground is uneven or when you're distracted or when you're moving in the dark. You're training the muscle and the nerve together, and that combination is what makes you steady. Here's the safety progression. If you have a history of Achilles tendon problems, start with both legs, use a smaller range of motion, and skip the explosive push for the first week. Just practice controlled calf raises, up in 2 seconds, down in 3 seconds, no hold at the top. Once that feels pain-free, add the explosive push and the 1-second hold. If you have neuropathy or significant numbness in your feet, do this movement near a counter or wall and always keep one hand lightly resting for balance. The goal is power, not risk. And if you feel any sharp pain in your Achilles or the arch of your foot, stop, check your form, and consider doing the movement on flat ground instead of a step to reduce the range. You should feel your calf muscles burn by the 8th or 10th rep. That's the training effect. You should not feel pain in your joints or tendons. Here's the part that ties the two movements together. The sit-to-stand explosive rebuilds the power in your hips, glutes, and quads, the muscles that lift you and drive you forward. The calf raise explosive rebuilds the power in your ankles and calves, the muscles that stabilize you and catch you. Together, they address the entire kinetic chain from hip to toe, the chain that keeps you independent. And because both movements are explosive, both train the fast-twitch fibers that walking ignores, they give you something walking can never give you: speed, power, and reactive strength. Now let's talk about the mistake almost everyone makes when they try to add strength work after 60, and it's a mistake that wastes months of effort. They do the movements too slowly. They treat every exercise like a stretch or a balance drill, slow and controlled from start to finish. And yes, control is important, especially on the lowering phase. But if you never move fast, if you never challenge your muscles to contract quickly, you will never recruit the fast-twitch fibers. You'll build endurance, you'll build some stability, but you won't build power. Power requires speed. Not reckless speed, not speed that sacrifices form, but intentional, explosive speed on the concentric phase, the phase where you're lifting or pushing. That's what wakes up the dormant fibers. That's what reverses dynapenia. So here's your protocol, plain and practical. 2 days a week, pick 2 days that aren't back-to-back. You're going to do both movements. Start with the sit-to-stand explosive, 2 or 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, rest 1 minute between sets. Then move to the calf raise explosive, 2 or 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps per leg, or per both legs if you're starting there, rest 1 minute between sets. The entire session takes less than 10 minutes. You don't need a gym, you don't need equipment, you don't need special shoes. You need a sturdy chair and a counter. That's it. After 2 weeks, assess. Can you stand faster? Can you rise onto your toes with more height? Do your legs feel more responsive when you walk? If yes, keep going. If the movements feel easy, add a 3rd set or increase the speed slightly on the explosive phase. If they still feel challenging, stay where you are for another 2 weeks. Progress is not linear, and at 60+, consistency matters more than intensity. Doing these twice a week for 6 months will produce more strength and more stability than doing them hard for 2 weeks and then stopping because you overdid it. Here's what you'll notice first. It's not dramatic. You won't feel like a different person after 1 session. But somewhere around week 2 or 3, you'll stand from a chair and realize you didn't think about it. You didn't brace yourself, you didn't push with your hands, you just stood. Or you'll step off a curb that's higher than you expected and your ankle will adjust and you won't stumble. These are the small moments that tell you your power is coming back. And those small moments are what keep you independent. They're what keep you confident. They're what keep you from being afraid of your own body. Now let's talk about the one thing that makes these movements even more effective, and it's something most people skip because it sounds boring. It's rest. Not rest between sets, though that matters too. I mean rest days between sessions. Your muscles don't get stronger during the exercise. They get stronger during the recovery, the 48 to 72 hours after the exercise when your body repairs the microdamage and builds the fibers back thicker and faster. If you do these movements every day, you don't give your body time to adapt. You just accumulate fatigue, and at 60+, fatigue increases fall risk, it doesn't decrease it. So 2 days a week, 3 at most if you're feeling strong, with at least one full day of rest in between. On the off days, walk, stretch, do your balance drills, but don't repeat these explosive movements. Let them work. Here's the other piece people miss. Nutrition. You can't build muscle without protein, and most people over 60 don't eat enough. I'm not going to tell you to drink shakes or count grams obsessively, but if you're doing these movements, aim for a palm-sized portion of protein, eggs, fish, chicken, beans, tofu, something at each meal. Your muscles need the raw material to rebuild, and if you're under-eating protein, you'll do the work and see half the results. It's that simple. Now let's address the question some of you are asking. What about walking? Should I stop? Absolutely not. Walking is still valuable. It's good for your heart, your circulation, your mood, your weight management, your joint mobility. Keep walking. But stop expecting walking to preserve your leg power, because it won't. Think of walking as your baseline, your daily maintenance. Think of these two movements as your insurance, the thing that protects you when walking isn't enough. You need both. Walking keeps you healthy. These movements keep you strong. Here's the piece that no one talks about but that shows up in the research from fall prevention and aging mobility centers. The people who fall and fracture a hip, the ones who end up in a hospital and never quite regain their independence, they weren't sedentary. Most of them were active. They walked, they gardened, they moved. But when they tripped, when that one moment came, their muscles didn't have the power to save them. The reaction was too slow. The contraction was too weak. And that single moment changed everything. These two movements are about preventing that moment. They're about making sure that when you stumble, your body has the speed and the strength to catch you. Let me give you the one modification that makes these movements safer and more effective for people who are starting very cautious or who have knee pain. For the sit-to-stand explosive, use a higher chair. A chair that puts your hips slightly above your knees when you sit reduces the load on your knees and makes the explosive stand easier. As you get stronger, you can gradually use a lower chair, increasing the difficulty. For the calf raise explosive, if rising onto your toes feels unstable, start by just practicing the lowering phase. Stand on a step or a curb, rise onto your toes using both hands on a rail for support, then remove your hands and lower slowly. Do that for a week, building eccentric strength, and then add the explosive push. Eccentric training alone builds strength, and it's lower risk for people who are worried about balance. Here's the one thing you should not do. Do not add weight. I know some programs will tell you to hold dumbbells or wear a weighted vest to make these movements harder. Don't. At 60+, the risk of adding external load when you're training explosive movements is not worth the marginal benefit. Your body weight is enough. If you get strong enough that body weight feels too easy, and that's a good problem to have, increase the speed, increase the reps, or decrease the rest time between sets. But don't add weight. Keep it simple, keep it safe. Now let's talk about the one unexpected benefit these movements give you, and it's something that doesn't show up in strength tests but that people report within weeks. Confidence. The psychological shift that comes from feeling powerful again. When your legs are weak, even if you don't consciously think about it, you move cautiously. You hesitate before stepping off a curb. You avoid stairs. You hold the rail even when you don't need to. That hesitation is protective, sure, but it's also limiting. It shrinks your world. When your leg power comes back, when you can stand fast and push off hard, that hesitation fades. You move freely again. You trust your body again. And that trust changes how you live, not just how you move. Let me tell you about Thomas. Thomas was 69, a retired teacher, walked his neighborhood every evening, loved it, felt good doing it. But he'd stopped going to his grandkids' soccer games because the bleachers were too steep and he didn't trust his legs on the climb. He didn't tell anyone. He just made excuses. We started him on these two movements, sit-to-stand explosive and single-leg calf raise, twice a week. After a month, he went to a game. He climbed the bleachers without holding the rail, sat down, stood up at the end without thinking about it, and told me later that it felt like he'd gotten a piece of himself back. That's what power gives you. Not just strength, not just stability, but freedom. Here's the science behind why these two movements work better than general strength training. Most strength programs for older adults focus on resistance machines or bands, and those are fine, they build muscle, they improve function. But they're slow. You push a leg press at a controlled tempo, you pull a resistance band in 2 seconds, you lower in 2 seconds. There's no explosive phase, no speed, no recruitment of the fast twitch fibers. These two movements, because they're body weight and because they demand speed, they're functional, they mimic the demands of real life, and they train the neuromuscular system in a way that transfers directly to fall prevention. When you practice standing fast, you get better at standing fast. When you practice pushing off your toes explosively, you get better at catching yourself. That specificity is what makes them so effective. Now here's the progression that takes you from beginner to genuinely strong. Once you can do 3 sets of 12 sit-to-stand explosives with good speed and control, progress to a pause squat explosive. Same movement, but pause for 2 seconds at the bottom, fully seated, before you explode up. That pause removes the stretch reflex and makes your muscles work harder from a dead stop. It's significantly harder, and it builds even more power. For the calf raise, once you can do 3 sets of 12 single leg reps with full range and good speed, progress to a single leg calf raise explosive on a step, so your heel drops below the level of your toes at the bottom. That increased range builds more strength and more flexibility in your Achilles, both of which reduce injury risk. Here's the timeline you can expect. Week 1, you'll feel sore, especially in your quads and calves, if you haven't done explosive work before. That's normal. Week 2, the soreness fades and the movements start to feel smoother. Week 3 to 4, you'll notice functional changes, standing feels easier, your balance feels more solid. Week 6 to 8, the changes become obvious to other people. You move faster, you look steadier. Month 3 to 6, this becomes part of who you are. You're not someone who used to be strong. You're someone who is strong. And that identity shift, that sense of capability, it affects everything. Now let me give you the one mistake that people make after they start feeling stronger, and it's a mistake that causes setbacks. They get confident and they stop being careful. They skip the warm-up, they add too much speed too fast, they try the advanced progression before they're ready. Don't. Stay disciplined. Before each session, do 2 minutes of easy movement, march in place, gentle leg swings, ankle circles, something that raises your heart rate slightly and warms your joints. That warm-up reduces injury risk significantly. And when you progress, do it gradually. Add 1 rep per set each week, or add 1 second of speed, or add 1 extra session per week, but not all 3 at once. Gradual progression builds lasting strength. Aggressive progression builds injury. Here's the reality. Walking is not enough. It never was. It keeps you moving, it keeps you healthy, but it does not preserve the power your legs need to keep you safe. These 2 movements, the sit-to-stand explosive and the calf raise explosive, they do. They train the fast twitch fibers, they build reactive strength, they give your body the speed to catch you when you stumble. They take less than 10 minutes, twice a week, and they can be done at home with no equipment. There is no reason not to start today. Which of these 2 movements will you try first, and what's the one thing about your leg strength right now that worries you most? Drop a comment, I'd love to hear your story.